How I fixed my attention span. I went from this recent college graduate who always used to do his schoolwork at the last minute because he couldn't stay focused unless it was right before the deadline, and he could barely read like one page of a book. Seriously, it wasn't until that long ago that the only books I had really read were like the ones in school or like Harry Potter or something. I'd spend hours on YouTube Shorts and Instagram every single day, and most of the time I knew what I needed to do, but I just couldn't stay focused long enough to make significant progress. Fast forward to now, where between everything I do, I stay focused and productive for nearly 10 to 12 hours per day. I wake up at 5 a.m. and get straight to work. I've seen some solid growth in my YouTube channel and still balance this with my day job, working out, cooking yummy food, and spending quality time with my girlfriend, friends, and family. None of this would be possible if I hadn't fixed my attention span. So in this video, I'll help you skip the years that I wasted constantly getting distracted and never making significant progress towards my goals, so that you too can fix your attention span, stay focused for long periods of time, and finally make some real progress towards your goals. I'll run through the 6 steps that I took to get to this point where I no longer have the attention span of a goldfish. And these steps will just be in the order that I personally did them, not necessarily the best order. In fact, I probably suggest that you do certain things even sooner than I did them, but I just want to accurately show you my process and what ended up working for me. All right, so a little context on my experience with attention span as a aspiring entrepreneur. It was very difficult for me to keep my attention on one thing for a long period of time. I found books too boring because I just start reading, and then like after getting 2 sentences down the page, my mind would just start wandering to something else. Back when I was in school, this meant I would chip away at my schoolwork very slowly until eventually focusing and getting all my work done at the last minute before the deadline. This system was fine, I guess, and it got me through university, but it only worked because I had to do it. When a professor set a deadline, I'd adhere to it because listening to the teacher and following their instructions and adhering to the deadlines is something that had been ingrained in me since I was like 5 years old. But once I graduated college and started pursuing my own business ventures, things got a lot harder because technically I didn't have to do anything. I could set deadlines for myself, but it didn't really work because I had no teacher, no boss telling me when to upload my next YouTube video. It was just me. I couldn't rely on that superhuman state of focus and productivity that I'd seemed to get the day before a deadline. It was no longer an issue of me procrastinating, but eventually doing the work at the last minute. It became an issue of me just never doing the work because I couldn't stay focused, and then never seeing any progress or results, and then getting discouraged and losing motivation. Stopped playing video games. So the first thing I did was finally pull the plug on playing video games back in 2021, I believe. I won't go into too much depth here because I have a whole video on my channel going through my experience and how quitting video games was one of the best things I've done. It's a fairly old video from last year, but it still gets comments and views to this day because it's kind of controversial, I guess. I sort of told people, oh, you should stop playing video games, and then I think it got pushed out to like all the little gamer boys and stuff. So there's a bunch of angry comments in the description like, oh, what? Like, no, you can play in moderation. Don't tell me what to do. So it's kind of funny to see people still getting mad about that. But the overstimulation from video games definitely had a huge negative impact on my attention span. Because of all the dopamine, my brain would constantly crave playing video games, and thoughts of these games would invade my mind, and my dreams constantly taking my attention away from whatever it was I was supposed to be doing at that time. I'd be trying to focus in class and start thinking about the random games that I was playing at the time. I literally remember having dreams unlocking like some of the best players in FIFA, or like playing Call of Duty Warzone or something. It was sad, I know. Finally calling it quits and packing up the console was the first major step in improving my attention span, and honestly my entire self-improvement and entrepreneurial journey. Quickly capture ideas. Next up, I started quickly capturing ideas, and this is something I started doing back in either 2020 or 2021, I don't really remember, but my techniques for doing so have changed over the years. Basically, you've probably heard that your brain is meant for coming up with ideas but not storing them. Short-term human memory is like really bad, so when a thought pops into our mind, or we remember that we need to do something, it's best that we quickly capture that and write it down somewhere. This not only helps me simply not forget what I need to do, but it also allows me to clear those thoughts from my mind. Imagine that you're recording a YouTube video and then the thought of another great video idea pops into your mind. If you keep it there and you continue trying to record that YouTube video, it'll just continue floating around in your mind, sort of pulling your attention away. You're going to be kind of trying to think about it, but also tune it out, but also still remember it. It's just going to be a whole mess. And the same goes for if you're in a conversation with someone or just any other focused activity. If we don't have a system to capture that idea, it will continue to pull our attention away. I remember I used to have like all these applications open on my computer all the time, like Logic Pro, Final Cut Pro, Chrome, Notes, Spotify, all this stuff, and it would all be eating up the RAM or the random access memory on the computer, and it would start to slow down the computer's processing speed and power or whatever. I feel like that's kind of like what's happening with our brains. Each of these thoughts that we let float around in our mind is like another application open on our computer, draining the RAM. Capturing these thoughts into some kind of system is like us closing the application and freeing up the memory on our computer. So I'll tell you what my current quick capture system is like. I used to use various to-do list apps for this, but I no longer really get sort of random tasks popping into my mind because I feel like I've been so dialed in on my goals and exactly what I need to do for my channel and stuff. So usually it's just kind of random thoughts about video ideas or advice to give to my clients or for my business or things like that. So because of this, I've no longer used those to-do list apps and I just simply use the basic Apple Notes app. All right, so here is what my workflow basically looks like. A thought will pop into my mind and then I'll go to my phone, and I have the iPhone 15 Pro, which has this action button on the side, which you can map to a shortcut, and basically that shortcut will open up this specific note that I have labeled just like idea inbox, and then I'll just go on here and I'll just quickly write out whatever the idea is in just some broken English, and then I'll put my phone away and go back to focusing on whatever it is I was doing at the time. And then every few days during my sort of learning block towards the end of the day, I'll go back through this giant note of random ideas and I'll kind of sort through things, put them into different places depending on where they belong, or sometimes I can just delete things because they're not relevant anymore. This has allowed me to conveniently empty my mind, which leaves more room for new knowledge and ideas. But most importantly, it allows me to pay full attention to the task at hand. I won't dive too deep into the system in this video, but this quick capture is kind of the start. And then when paired with my second brain and content creation workflow, it kind of becomes the core of my entire channel and business and life, honestly. It's how I learn, improve skills, optimize my life, and come up with video ideas. I'm Miles, and by the way, I make videos sharing what I've learned about productivity, mindset, health, content creation, and business as I work towards escaping my 9-to-5 job and building my dream life. My hope is that by sharing my lessons and experiences, you can get there a lot faster and avoid a lot of the pain, mistakes, and frustrations that I've experienced along the way. If you want to learn more of these lessons, click subscribe right now so that YouTube will suggest you more videos like this one. More books. For the longest time, I never really read books on my own time, and this really shocked my dad because he grew up before the internet and TV, honestly. I don't know when TV was invented, but he pretty much all they did in their free time was read books. Part of this was definitely the fault of video games, which made books just feel so boring in comparison. But also I think my emotions associated with reading and learning in general were kind of spoiled by the education system, which forced me to read books about random topics that I had no personal interest in learning about. Once I got into self-development and entrepreneurship, I quickly found myself wanting to read more because the things that I would read about would directly benefit my actual life. And so once you can start reading about things that you are genuinely interested in, it completely changes the game with reading and will make the process way more fun and enjoyable. Now, how did this help fix my attention span? Well, basically, it was sort of the reverse effect of video games. Reading is a super low stimulation activity. You're basically just staring at a bunch of squiggly lines on a page over and over and over again. So by learning to enjoy reading and spending more time doing so, my attention span naturally increased because I became accustomed to doing this low stimulation activity where it involved just kind of focusing on this very sort of boring thing, just like a page, for a long period of time. Began meditating. In the beginning of 2023, I started meditating, and that's when things really started to take off. For the first couple months, I did these guided meditations, basically because I had heard that meditation was good for you and it, helped your mental health or calmed your mind and body or something. But eventually I learned of the benefits of meditation specifically for fixing your attention span and being able to focus for longer, and how it could directly impact my productivity and success in entrepreneurship. Essentially, now I view meditation as a method to train your attention muscle, just as you train any sort of other muscle in the gym. So what do I mean exactly? Well, if you've ever tried meditating, you know typically how it goes. You close your eyes and then you start to focus on your breath, and then some random thought starts spilling into your mind. and then you catch yourself having this random thought, and then you go back to focusing on your breath. Then you're sitting there breathing with your eyes closed, and then you remember that you need to buy something on Amazon, which reminds you of some random childhood memory, which links to some other thoughts and creates this whole web of thoughts in your mind. As you continue to do this, you're basically practicing the act of tuning out distractions and then continuing to pay attention to one thing. Eventually, I found that this kind of builds up this force field in my mind, which allows me to sort of easily just swat away any sort of distraction that pops into my mind or any sort of random thoughts that are taking me away from the present moment. Cut out processed foods, started animal-based diet. In August of last year, I switched to a animal-based or carnivore sort of diets consisting mainly of meat, eggs, dairy, and the occasional fruit. I stopped eating vegetables, starchy carbs, even rice, and any sort of seed oils, processed foods, all of that sort of bad stuff. And until you do this, I promise your brain is only acting at like 60% capacity. Ever since I've made this lifestyle change, my mind feels so much sharper. I don't get nearly as many of those invasive thoughts, and I feel just much more in control of my brain. Now, you don't have to necessarily go super extreme carnivore diet like I have, and you'll probably start to see a good amount of the benefits by just cutting out starchy carbs, processed food, sugar, seed oils, that type of thing. So that's kind of like the 80-20 rule for this whole diet thing, I'd say. It might sound kind of weird and you fully won't understand it until you try it for yourself, but I remember my baseline sort of cognitive performance would be at sort of just this mediocre level or range. And so whenever I would eat any kind of junk food or something, it wouldn't really deviate that much from that already sort of mediocre level. But now that I'm used to being super sharp and clear and kind of in control of my brain, zero brain fog, when I do deviate from the diet, like I was just traveling in Japan for a little bit, I ate rice, I ate some sweets and stuff, and you just feel the effects way stronger. And because basically I'm now used to being up here, and then I dip back down to that mediocre level, and I feel like this huge drop. Nutrition and health is something that I've really become passionate about recently, so I'd like to talk about it more on this channel because it's helped me a lot and my family's health a lot. So let me know if you want to see more videos about that type of thing. I'm no doctor or expert or anything, but I can talk about things I've seen, tried, researched, learned, and how they've helped me, and then you can, take that for what you will and try things for yourself. Prioritize sleep. For my birthday last year, a couple of my friends got me a Oura ring, which I had heard of before, and it seemed cool as a way to kind of track your sleep, but the benefits of it didn't really click until I actually got one for myself. You can of course listen to your body and get an idea of whether or not you need more sleep or something, but in my experience, the problem with that is simply having a poor night's sleep is not going to be enough to lead to any sort of behavioral change. You stay up late Saturday night, drinking alcohol, you feel terrible the next day, but then you still repeat the same behavior the following weekend. Being able to see actual data that supported me feeling like shit after a poor night of sleep motivated me to make positive lifestyle adjustments. I'd go to sleep earlier, avoid alcohol, and I'd see the stats improve on my Oura ring, which would reinforce that positive behavior. On the other hand, if I didn't exercise that day, had a late meal or a couple drinks, my stats would quickly reflect that. Since getting the Oura ring, has my sleep been perfect? No, of course not, but I've started to consciously make an effort to prioritize sleep, and I feel like I'm in control of how good I feel the next day. It makes me think twice before doing anything that would negatively impact my sleep. How did this affect my attention span? Well, as you can imagine, if I got a poor night of sleep, my brain would be all over the place the next day, invasive thoughts coming from left and right, and my sort of mental force field or ability to tune out distractions would be pretty much non-existent. It'd be a whole mess. When I got a restorative night of sleep, it'd be the complete opposite. I'd be thinking clearly and I'd be able to stay fully focused on the task at hand. I have no affiliation with Oura Ring, although I honestly kind of wish I did because I found it to be probably the best, most accurate sleep tracker out of all the popular wearables. I also have the Apple Watch and the Whoop strap, and it's had a huge positive impact on my sleep, general health, and attention span. Deleted social media, no short form content. Towards the end of last year, I decided to completely delete social media from my phone and stopped watching all short form content, and as you can imagine, this had a huge positive impact on my attention span. Prior to this, I'd routinely fall into traps of mindlessly scrolling through YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels, frying my dopamine receptors and attention span. And in the productivity and self-development space, I feel like there's a pretty common consensus that TikTok and short form content, social media is all bad for you, but I think that just simply being told that it's bad isn't enough to make you want to stop consuming it entirely. It wasn't until I went cold turkey, did a full detox, that I started to experience the benefits of cutting out social media firsthand, and that's when it really clicked for me. I found myself not only being able to pay attention to one thing for longer, but I also began to enjoy working hard on my business and sticking to some of the other habits like meditation, sleep, reading, and my diet. I still occasionally re-download social media to post something and will eventually get sucked in, but now that I know sort of the negative effects, I've been able to kind of recognize what's happening, and I'll feel my brain start to get kind of numb and go fuzzy because I'm used to being super sharp with zero brain fog most of the time. Remove distractions from environment. Finally, the last thing that I've been doing recently to really dial in my attention span is remove distractions from both my physical and digital environments. As I discussed earlier, there are certain things we can do to improve our ability to stay focused, like meditation and reading, but I found that there's an easier step that most of us can take, which is to just simply remove all distractions from our environment. And if we have literally zero distractions, there's really nothing left for our brain to do besides focus on the task at hand. So here are a few things that I've been doing to optimize my physical and digital environments for attention and focus. Physical. Establish dedicated space exclusively for deep focus work. No phone within reach or line of sight. Keep desk completely clear of any items that do not directly contribute to my work. Wear noise canceling headphones to tune out distracting sounds from environment. Digital. Turn off phone and computer notifications. Make web browser clean and minimal. Only use one computer monitor. Keep only 1 to 3 tabs open at a time to avoid multitasking. All right, so after making the 8 lifestyle changes that I've discussed in the video, I feel like I've built up a pretty solid attention span and can maintain focus on the important work. I'll put a visual with everything that I stopped and started doing on screen now, but if you'd like to read the full written guide for this video or connect with other like-minded people to collectively learn, teach, and grow together, join my free online community Miles Ahead. That's the top link in the description. Go click that right now. As always, do something today that your future self would thank you for.